When you think of classic American muscle cars from the 1970s, a few iconic models probably come to mind: the Mustang, the Camaro, the Challenger. But there's one muscle car from that era that might surprise you. What if I told you one of the coolest American muscle cars of the 70s was actually Italian? That's right, Italian. This sleek, high-performance machine has a fascinating backstory, one filled with unexpected twists and turns. You're not going to believe where this American muscle car icon really came from. Stay tuned to find out the shocking truth behind one of the most iconic American cars of the 20th century. Trust me, this is a story you won't want to miss. The Tomaso Pantera is an American muscle car with an Italian connection. Alright, so we all know the classic American muscle cars of the 1970s, the Mustangs, the Camaros, the Challengers. But did you know there was actually an Italian muscle car that was just as cool back then? I'm talking about the Tomaso Pantera. Now, the Pantera might not be the very first Italian car to feature an American engine. That title belongs to the 1962 Iso Rivolta IR 300. But the Pantera was definitely the first and most important collaboration between Italian design and American muscle. You see, the Pantera's story starts with a guy named Alejandro de Tomaso. He founded his own little car company in Modena, Italy, back in 1959. And from the very beginning, de Tomaso was teaming up with Ford to source the engines for his unique sports cars. His first model was called the Vallelunga, a lightweight mid-engine ride with a little Ford Cortina 4-cylinder under the hood. De Tomaso even tried working with Carroll Shelby in the early 60s to build a new race car. But that partnership ended up falling through after Shelby backed out. Undeterred, de Tomaso went on to develop his next sports car, the notoriously unreliable Mangusta. And get this, he allegedly named it as a sort of protest against Shelby and that famous Cobra of his, since the Mangusta also had a Ford 289 V8. But the real breakthrough came in 1967, when Ford Vice President Lee Iacocca saw the potential in selling an exotic Italian sports car with American power in the States. With the Shelby Cobra no longer in production, Iacocca wanted a car that could go head-to-head with both Ferrari and the Corvette. And that's how the Pantera was born. The Pantera's sleek design is credited to American Tom Ciarda, who worked at the famous Italian coach builder Carrozzeria Ghia. And de Tomaso even convinced ex-Lamborghini engineer Gianpaolo Dallara to handle the car's engineering. It was built in Italy under the code name Type 874. When the Pantera finally hit the American market in 1971, it was a smash hit. Journalists were raving about how the design was even more impressive than the Corvette. I mean, this thing looked like a Ferrari, sounded like a Mustang, and was sold right alongside Lincoln Mercurys. Pretty wild, right? A true American muscle car underneath. The Pantera was de Tomaso's big swing at cracking the American market. But what you might not know is that this thing was actually based on his earlier sports car, the Mangusta. And man, that Mangusta, that was kind of a warning sign that Ford seemed to just totally ignore. I mean, the Pantera had a lot of the same DNA. That slick fiberglass body, for example. But underneath, it was sitting on a full steel monocoque chassis. Plus, you had that fully independent suspension with all the good stuff. Unequal length A-arms, coilovers, stabilizer bars, even rack and pinion steering. But the real heart and soul of the Pantera? That was all Ford. I'm talking about a 351 Cleveland Phi 8 stuffed right in the back, pushing around 330 horsepower and over 340 pound-feet of torque. With a 0 to 60 time in the mid-5-second range, this thing was as quick as some of the baddest muscle cars of the 1970s. I mean, we're talking about Chevelle SS 454 territory here. And get this, the Pantera even snagged that ZF transaxle from the Mangusta. That same gearbox also happened to be in the gorgeous but oh-so-troublesome Maserati Bora. In 1972, they even rolled out a more powerful GTS version rated at 350 horsepower for Group 3 racing. Now, the really wild part? The Pantera hit the market with an MSRP under $10,000. I know, right? That's about half of what you'd pay for a comparable Ferrari or Lamborghini back then. Heck, the 1971 Ferrari Daytona had an MSRP close to $20,000. But De Tomaso didn't skimp on the fancy stuff. The Pantera came loaded with all kinds of luxury features: plush leather interior, power windows, the whole 9 yards. I mean, this thing had the exotic looks and performance of a supercar, but with the creature comforts of a Lincoln. On paper, it should have been an absolute home run. The Pantera went out with a whimper. As gorgeous and impressive as the Pantera was, the truth is, it had all kinds of engineering problems that made it a real headache for owners. These things were notorious for overheating, and there were some serious structural weaknesses too. One owner I read about said they had way more power than the chassis could really handle. He said if you put the pedal to the floor, the rear quarter panels would actually collapse. Yikes. And apparently, the first batch of around 300 Panteras that rolled out were just kind of rushed into production without enough refinement. The Lincoln Mercury dealers who had to sell these things didn't really know what to do with them, and they didn't provide much support when owners started bringing them in for repairs. On top of that, the Pantera is a true sports car, so taller folks had a heck of a time even getting in and out of them. That definitely narrowed down the target audience. Then, in 1973, new emissions regulations and the oil crisis really took a toll. They had to dial the power back from that initial 335 horsepower down to just 250. And to meet safety regs, they slapped on these ugly rubber bumpers that just ruined the whole look. By 1974, Ford had just had enough. They'd already managed to iron out a lot of the Pantera's issues by that point, but I guess the damage was already done. De Tomaso did keep the Pantera going in limited production even after Ford backed out, all the way up to 1992. But the car never really recovered its reputation, even though the prices stayed way lower than Italian exotics like the Countach. Despite all that, the Pantera definitely left its mark. I mean, just look at the pop culture legacy. Elvis Presley had one that he literally shot through the door when it wouldn't start. That bullet hole-riddled car is still on display at the Peterson Museum in LA. So yeah, the Pantera was one wild ride. Gorgeous looks, killer performance, but a whole lot of headaches too. It's a shame it never quite got the Hollywood ending it deserved. Getting a Pantera today. These days, the true Pantera fans are willing to pay a pretty penny to get their hands on one. According to the data over at Classic.com, the average price paid for a Pantera in the last 5 years is a whopping $102,845. But get this, you can still find some decent examples out there for a relative bargain. Just take this one, for instance. It's been kept in original condition with just 43,000 miles on the clock, and it sold for $53,500 back in 2022. That's an absolute steal when you consider the average is over 100 grand. Yeah, the Pantera might have had its fair share of issues back in the day, but these cars have clearly cemented their place in the hearts of hardcore enthusiasts. I mean, when you combine that unique history, the sleek Italian design, and the pure American muscle, it's easy to see why gearheads are still so passionate about them. Even with all the headaches, the Pantera just has that special something that keeps people coming back. So tell me, my friends, have you ever had the chance to get behind the wheel of a Pantera? What was that experience like? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And if you enjoyed learning about the wild story behind this Italian-American muscle car icon, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like the video, and turn on the notification bell to get notified when I post incredible contents like this. I've got plenty more automotive history and hidden gems like this to uncover. You won't want to miss it. Until we meet next time, keep those engines revving. Drive safe.